Hello and welcome to the Green Collar Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jose Almanzar, a practicing environmental attorney and former environmental scientist. This podcast is all about exploring careers in sustainability in the environmental field, what they look like, how to get started, and how to grow into them. Each episode, I sit down with professionals who have built meaningful careers in this space to hear their stories, how they got started, the challenges they faced, and the advice I have for anyone looking to break in or level up. Whether you're a student, a career changer, or just passionate about making a difference, these conversations will have something valuable for you. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Let's dive right in.
Cool. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. This is Green Collar Careers. I'm Jose Almanzar, your host. And today I'm joined by someone who's been answering the question on how do I break into green careers for more than a decade. I'm here with Keith Kinch. Keith Kinch. How are you, Keith?
I'm good. It's cold. I'm in Brooklyn. It's like a freeze warning. But I'm good though. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so Keith is in Brooklyn, like he just said, and we've known for a while. Obviously, Biggie, hip hop. Keith and Brooklyn go hand in hand. Brooklyn's at the creativity, hustle, heart, and really what's happening in Brooklyn and most of New York City. It's also now becoming a hub for climate innovation. And Keith has been really at the center of this space, really for at least a decade, if not more. I know that Keith helped start BlocPower, and turned it from a local startup to a national leader in building electrification. He now serves as a strategic advisor at Legacy Suite, and he's a founder in residence with the Browning the Green Space, right, Keith?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so that's what I do. That's why my beard is no longer black. It's moved to white. It's all the things you just said.
So, Keith, tell me a little bit about Browning the Green Space. What's that about?
Yeah, so Brown the Green Space, I've been there now a year and it's amazing. It's a small nonprofit based in Massachusetts. And the real goal there is to um, build build pathways and breaking barriers to the clean energy market, whether you're looking for career pathways in employment or whether you're a founder, your startup, or your business. So they Brandon Blue Space has been around 5 years. They've done great work. Part of my job, which I love, is working with founders who are in maybe year 1, year 2, year 3, or even further, and trying to figure out how to help them move forward. It reminds me, when I was those years, and it also lets me know like innovation is still happening and the excitement of it. So I really get to every day work in a space that I love and work with the tool that I love.
How'd you get hooked up with them? Did they find you? Did you find them?
Good question. A little bit of both. So I would say, so I met the executive director about 4 or 5 years ago when we first started Found the Green Space. And I actually was part of Danelle and I, Danelle Berry, founder of BlocPower. He and I were part of an accelerator that was led by Terry Ford, who's the executive director of Found the Green Space. And that's how we first connected and we kind of had the relationship. And then when Round the Green Space, in partnership with Greentown Labs, launched an accelerator for founders and for incubating new businesses, I served as a judge, looking at business plans, and I'll be honest, I loved it. As much as I was busy at BlocPower, and I had negative time to do it. I made time, and I found myself in love reading business plans and pitch decks, and I was like, "Oh wow, like this is amazing! Oh wow, they're here." I remember Danelle and I were here, so it got me like ignited to do this work, and be a mentor. When I left BlocPower last year, Carrie and I were talking. It's like, "Hey man, won't you come in and help us? With this program, it's called an Excel program around the space." And I said, "Sure, I love to help, love to be part of the team." And that's where it started. So it really was like an ecosystem thing, where like we work together as ecosystem in the Northeast, not even Brooklyn, in the Northeast, for the last couple of years, and decided to join and been enjoying it ever since.
So before Keith and I, went live with the recording, we were just sharing kind of some of our background, and Keith, went to John Jay, Brooklyn, true and true. You were born in Brooklyn, Keith.
Born in Brooklyn, born and raised in Brooklyn, East New York, Brooklyn. Both my parents were born and raised in Barbados, so I'm a child of immigrants. grew up in the 80s, in East New York was very tumultuous times. Everyone talks about certain communities being very difficult to live in. East New York was definitely one of them in the 80s. What I would say is that even though there were, tough times in the neighborhood, we had a sense of community and we had a sense of growth. And I think part of it comes from my parents. My dad was a teacher. My dad was a first grade and third grade teacher. So a lot of people saw my dad as like Mr. Kinch, and he taught at the school. So there was a time in my life I told people I had no name. They're like, "What does that mean?" I was Mr. Kinch's son. That was my name in the neighborhood. Right. So they were like, so a lot of times, and I joke about this, but it worked out for me, and I'm thankful. A lot of times, kids will get into fights and beat each other up. A lot of kids that are fighting, and not because I was like amazing at fighting. They felt sorry for me. They're like, "Oh, it's Mr. Kid's son. His life must be hard." My dad was a very stern teacher. My dad was like one of the hardest teachers to, based on the parents and feel like your dad is tough to work with. Your dad difficult. So they're like, if he's tough at school, your life must be crazy at home. Now, obviously, my dad was very different at home than school. So I kind of slid by for a decade or so being Mr. Kid's son. But saw everything. I remember when the first Meet My Home came in East New York, 1987. I remember they drove on the big trucks at night. And to see a neighborhood go from like, vacant lots and a couple of brownstones and a couple of buildings to go to like this wealth building plan of like 100, 200 in my home is like, I saw that and I said, oh, wow. So the community can change if things occur, right? If you have the right organizational leadership, if you have the right community. So, I still live in Brooklyn, and I'll live here as long as I'm allowed to, and then when I get a little older, my plan is to head back to Barbados and not miss any of this cruise warnings we're having now.
Yeah.
You know,
No, and no, we'll get to Barbados in a minute because I don't know if you probably remember I'm Dominican, so I'm Caribbean as well. But growing up in the city, and I grew up in Washington Heights. Um, in the early '90s, I immigrated here. The concept of nature, and the outdoors, from an urban setting, it's a little different than kind of upstate New York or parts of other parts of the United States. Do you remember at what point, it might have been either in childhood or as an adult, that you started to become a little more aware of either sustainability or kind of just this concept of environmental issues or energy issues? Like, do you recall when that spark kind of lit?
I think there's two as a child and there's one as an adult. I think as a child, Um, I was aware of it because you go watching Heights, so you probably have the same hot radiator I had that was at 1,000 degrees. That it could be 20 degrees outside, radiator is running at 85. You can't touch it because you're burning yourself as a kid, but the window is open. So I was like, well, how is it cold outside? We're trying to stay warm, and the window's open. So I realized, I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you could be 7, 8 years old, it just doesn't work out. So for me, it's like, there's something wrong either with the radiator or the building or something where everyone is like wearing shorts with the windows open and it's snowing. So I think that's like the first thing for me. Um, and then the second thing, in a positive way is, what was in the neighborhood? When it was hot outside, I don't know about you, we went to the Johnny Pump, get hydrant, and we turned the hydrant on to get wet. Yeah, there were a couple of pools in the neighborhood, but not all of them were safe, or my dad was sending me there, to be honest. My mother would send me there. So I was like, well, the neighborhood is missing things. So if I have to go out the neighborhood to get some things, or my parents have to send me to Barbados in the summer, so I could do stuff, it let me realize, oh, there's some things that are not available, like as a kid. I think as an adult, I remember the moment as an adult, like realistically, it was during Superstorm Sandy. Like when
Mm,
Sandy hit, I was living in Brooklyn. My wife was, I think, in the third trimester. So there was like a 4-day period. I was like, we have no lights, no electricity. We got a baby right now, right? And our daughter's at 2 years old, right? So I was like, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with sleeping low, but now like it hit me at home. I think sometimes you see things from a distance, like, this is bad.
yeah.
For me, it was like, oh, I'm sitting here before there's no there's no electricity in our apartment. And I also have to go to work, right? And also 8 months pregnant. And also our daughter is 3 years old. And I have to send her to daycare. So to me, I was like, okay, now it's real to me. What are we doing? So I think that's what, like, it all hit me at that point.
And so you co-founded, like I mentioned, and you co-founded BlocPower now, uh, going on almost 13 or 14 years ago. Long before climate tech became a buzzword. There was obviously finance bros and the climate community and tech community were having conversations about it. But do you recall kind of what was the original vision behind it, behind Block
Um,
Power and the concept of it?
Well, first, credit always goes to Danelle on the vision. Like this is Danelle's vision. Danelle and I worked on like three, four things together, and we just work well together. And I love Danelle. Danelle's like the god to my kids. I love his kids. We just work well together. I think what Danelle saw, and I know what Danelle saw. He saw a market fit and he saw an opportunity. Right? He saw, to your point, there were gaps. Right? There are gaps in terms of how can we make buildings more efficient historically underserved communities or in low to moderate income communities. There was one. And then two, how can we work with, utilities and government and the private sector to make it work? We always know historically in America, anything that does well is a private-public partnership. Whether you build railroads, you build buildings, or you build energy efficient. So I think that was one. And then two, the same time that I was kind of like putting this together, I was working for Rockaway doing Superstorm Sandy recovery. So I was really watching people rebuild their homes and getting next steps. And that process of getting a contractor, financing, still having time to do your daily activities to think about your home, and also how to build your home back better, how to mitigate. So I think for me, it was like, okay, I'm learning this on the ground. Danielle is, in the beginning to building this company. There's an opportunity for us to do this work that, yeah, it's great. We're going to do it well as a climate tech, but also we're going to be impactful. And also, how many people are going to get jobs out of this, right? There's a contractor that's going to fix 200 homes, right? He's going to do well, and his team will do well. That team maybe four and maybe 44. How do we make more of those contractors? How does Block Power be part of that process? Not just on a hardware level, on a software level, right? And that was the thing that we had talked about. And yeah, it's been there's a photo of us together in 2012, and I was looking at something yesterday, and I was like, yeah, that's really nice. Like we had like a beard to black, we were like excited about life. We were in our 30s, I love it still, but it's work. It's hard work.
Well, you guys took, a concept and you were able to scale it into in many ways could be applied as a national model, um, for municipalities really all over the world. So I commend you on any venture that people do for more than 2 years is a lot of work. You did it for about 12 years, so I commend you on that. And in terms of what was maybe one or two of the toughest lessons you learned from scaling, you know, a business like Black Power from, I don't want to call it small impacts, but you had to
Oh,
do a bunch of pilots before you kind of decided to scale.
you
What
know,
were some of the biggest lessons?
I'm going to start with something that I had to realize. I think the greatest enemy is the enemy. So I had to first understand that I had all the skills to do the people work. I just needed to do it. I think, and I give credit to Danelle on that. Danelle and I talk about this. And when you step out, and you're like, I want to start a company. I want to focus on payroll and do something different and talk to stakeholders. He was clear, like, we can do this. Like, we have the skills to do it. We may have done it in other phases of our lives, but now we could do it as a leader. I think that's one. Two, I think the pressure of, and I say this in a positive way, of being successful, not necessarily like personally about the work, the ecosystem, right? We're working with government, utility, homeowners, and it was like, we want this to work, right? To your point, we were building our model, some of it had not been done before, but also we're building out other stuff. And we were like, we want this to work. We know the impact economically and just health wise, right? And you mentioned a pilot. I'll give a great example of a pilot. And you said you grew up in Washington Heights, so asthma rates in the Bronx are very high. Asthma Harlem, one of the highest in the state. And in the Bronx, if you do a data dive, and we're doing some work on this, you would realize at that time, maybe about 7 years ago, most of the residents come from maybe 95 to 100 buildings. right, that have the highest rates of asthma, that are going to the emergency room, that talk about leading in the healthcare on asthma. So the question is, if those buildings were healthier, how many people would actually be suffering with asthma, whether they're 5 or whether they're 95, right?
Hmm.
So is that just changing the boiler? Is it insulation in the window so there's no like mold or condensation? Do we remove the particulate matter from the building? So I think things like that, where it's just not, oh, we're doing the work and it's nice, like we're solving real world problems. So I think stuff like that, like it made the work more important. It wasn't just getting up and saying, okay, 10 o'clock and do the work. It's like, no, like this is like real life work. To your point, whether we last 2 years or 20 years, our impact is gonna last, right? And it's beyond both of us and the team that we were working with. So I think that was the hardest part. And I still think about it in a positive way. And when I still drive in certain parts of the city, I can point to what we've done as a team. And I can say, look, I tell my kids, hey, look, that's what they had to work on, right? And feel proud about it.
So you mentioned something in terms of having the confidence in yourself, knowing that you have the skills to you have the skills to apply um, into this company now and to build it up in the way that you wanted to. It was just a matter of reminding yourself and being able to take that leap. That's something I feel a lot of people run into, either that are trying to break into energy or environmental space, or pivot into it if they've already been doing other work. If you were encountering somebody that perhaps wanted to
Mhm.
break into the space. Let's say you were giving, advice to, you have we've discussed, we both have children. You
Mhm.
speak to your kid, maybe 5 years from now, they finish a college degree. Let's say it was irrelevant to environmental space, or maybe they found some passion in college and they realize they want to break into this space. How what are some kind of grounding points? How would you encourage them to go about,
Yeah.
breaking?
I'll say it's three things. The first thing I'll say is don't limit yourself. Um, Look at your skills, right? Identify your skills the best way possible, whether it's marketing, software, hardware, finance, legal, operations, governance, whatever it is. Look at your skill, right? And see what you're good at or what you think you can get better at. And they are most likely transferable into this space, right? If you are good at installing a car battery in a gas powered car, there's 100% chance you'd be great at installing that a similar electric battery in an EV charging car. So, I think that's the one thing. So don't limit yourself. Two, try your best to talk to people that are in the space that have done it, right? That have done it, whether they've done it, like you said, 2 years, 20 years, and always try to get a feel of what the market is, where the market is and where it's going. And then three, understand you need to be data driven in your research. Like you have to do, it's not just, oh, I talked to 4 people to say hi. I talked to 6 people. I watched the TikTok. Look
Yeah.
at the data across the board and see this is where the market is going, and this is where I think I can fit in and build from there. And that's something that needs to happen whether you're like 22 and you're about to graduate college, or you're sitting at 52 and you're trying to figure out next steps in your career. I would say that, and I say that now to folks that are in the space now or going to the space. Even myself, I still do that. I still lead the market. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know what's going to happen because I did something 5 years ago. Who cares? Like the market is changed now, right? So I would say that, and to be mindful of the skills you need. It takes time. You got to be trained on some stuff. So,
So, I love those 3 things. Of the 3, I'll speak to the second one, which is speaking with people that are doing what you wanna do. Um, I think I'll and it's difficult, I get it if you're an introvert or if you're more naturally introverted. I understand that it could be a little difficult to strike up conversations with strangers or to cold email or cold call people, but it doesn't have to be that extreme. You can get warm leads from
mhm.
people that are in the space. It just takes a little bit of courage, and I think there's a misconception that if you speak to someone that you're automatically, trying to hit them up for a job. Like to your point, you're just gathering data. Like you're gathering data, and the best form of data, in my experience, is having direct conversations with people that are doing exactly what you want, what you're hoping to do. And one thing that I encourage people to do is just uh, outreach, outreach, and then gather data, outreach and gather data.
No, I agree. And most people will be surprised. I'm a diehard introvert. I don't enjoy doing podcasts or panels or anything. And people were like, "No, you seem to do well on that." That's the other thing I should have mentioned as a fourth thing. There are some things you're very good at. You don't like, you got to do it. So
Mm,
the example I did is there's a favorite meal that your mom or auntie or uncle makes for you. They don't like making the meal. They don't like getting burned at the stove or putting the ingredients together or whatever the meal is, but they're gonna do it to get the job done to get you fed. So I feel that's the thing as well. There's a skill set you have that you do not like that you will have to curate and continue to do. And I think that's the hardest part. So yeah, all right. The one ways are helpful. And I think also being straightforward, but like, hey, I just need some advice on something, or give me your thoughts on this. And he's trying to figure something out, right? And that's how I still am now. I still talk to mentors and I still search with people that have done things way ahead of me to make sure I'm headed pedal in the right direction.
so you recently joined Legacy Suite as a strategic advisor.
Yes.
Um, First of all, what is Legacy Suite, and then what is a strategic advisor within Legacy Suite? And
Sure.
then I'm
What
going
is
to ask
it?
a
I'll
follow-up.
give you the easy answer first. So Legacy Suite, it's an innovative digital estate planning platform. So it's designed to safeguard digital assets, online accounts, personal information. It's really a way to think about seamless transition in terms of inheritance and planning, right? Especially for those who have wealth that is tied to property or other items. And we take for granted, like, God forbid something happens, the paperwork is in the drawer in the basement. Or, here's my 5 passwords, you know them. In a situation where someone's passed away, you're not really even emotionally sound to make the decision right away. And also, there are times people argue about things after someone has lost their life. So just having this like centralized place to do the work and having it in a place where it's safe, right? We were talking about climate change. We've watched, fortunately, in some parts of the country where there have been fires at home, or there been floods. There's certain paperwork you're not going to get back, and you're not going to have time to go. So this is a place where it's safe, uh, security, as monitoring. So that's what we Legacy have been working on, and it ties into the work we're doing here about generational wealth and legacy and impact, and making sure folks are in a good place. In terms of my role, you know, um, just working with the two founders of the team, trying to figure out next steps and building the company, and just providing guidance on go to market kind of business plans, and just talking to next steps. Very similar to the work that I do around the business space. We'll
Yep.
talk to founders. Um, but just not the same lane. It's parallel. But I'm thankful that the two founders, I've known one of them over 10, 15 years, and one of them known a little shorter, and like they do amazing work. And I'm very clear that I like to deal with people with integrity and know what they're doing. So I'm not gonna just be all over the place working on 14 things.
Yeah.
So that's where I am now, and I think it's important. But just in general, in talking about sustainability, you got to be around, right? Or someone got to pass down something to be sustainable. So I think that's important.
Well, I'm gonna pivot right now, and I promised earlier that we would speak about the Caribbean a little bit. So, I mentioned this, and people who know me know I'm proud Dominican, proud immigrant. Moved to New York City as a kid, and man, before we went live, I mentioned to you that I've been struggling lately, man. I've been struggling. There's it's one of those things, like, the more that I'm learning about this climate change issue and the biodiversity loss issue, um, I'm in pain, man. I'm in pain. I feel like um, I'm hopeful that we can, that humanity can kind of come around and rally again. Rally I don't want to say solve this issue, but just position ourselves so that generations from now, our grandkids and great grandkids have a shot at having something that resembles a livable Earth. But man, all the data points to countries like Barbados, Dominican Republic, that whole everyone living in that equator band of the world really struggling. I mean, and there's going to be millions of climate refugees by 2050. You know, so I'm like I'm struggling a little bit, and I think part of it is that I feel a little helpless that like we're not doing enough to help the people that are going to be hurting the most.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so how do you reconcile with this with the work that you had been doing and everything that you've been building up to date to kind of remain hopeful? Because I need a little help,
yeah.
man.
I think there's two things. I think one, the conversation we're having and in general has become more in the forefront in America the last 20, 25 years. I think it's always been an issue in the Caribbean or in other countries, especially where you mentioned, and I think it varies from location to location. Like you said, your family's in DR, and it's a different conversation on this island, right? Like Barbados, we'll talk about, we're surrounded by water, but we have a water shortage in terms of fresh water, right? We may not have, like, as a Barbados as an island, concerns about like large hurricanes, but we, like, to your point, we have other concerns about what the island would look like or how it would look like in 50 years. So I think there's a conversation about what mitigation factors need to happen across all the islands as a whole, and then have a structured approach for each island, right? Whether it's, and it still has to be like you say, it's not just that island working on its own; it's working as a group of islands like CARICOM, other partners. I think that's the key, like having partners. I also would say, in talking to founders, when I'm at founder union space, and just talking to folks in the industry, there's a lot of innovation happening. A lot of things are happening that continue to move forward. And there are things that are happening that are not always like cool for TV like consumption. Like, how do we lower supply chain time so that what food or resources going to certain countries move forward. Um, and then thinking about other innovative ways to do the work, right? And to make assumptions. And then finally, it's something that we don't want to talk about. It's kind of like the book we went in the room. It's it's human behavior, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's understanding if you live on a certain part of the island of the world, not to live differently. You may have to have your house, instead of being a bottom floor house, you need to have it 2 stories, like your first floor, maybe your third floor now, right? So that you don't worry about flooding. Or maybe you need to have wind turbines on your house, or maybe you need to make an adjustment in how you're living. And even though you've done something for 30, 40 years, that's great. You need to make, so I think that's also like the pivot in behavior at the deployment. We're getting there. We're trying to get there a little faster so that that's the hope, and things are happening. Is just it's not always like cool to talk about. Good news is not always the best news to sell. So but
Well,
I think yeah, yeah. But I do think about it. I literally, I don't know about you. I still like follow the news in Barbados to see what's going on. I check every day. I follow what they're doing about sustainability. And just like DR, you can't. The grid has to be diversified. If the grid goes down, the whole island goes down. So we're just trying to. I always looking to see how I can be value add or just learn about what's going on.
yeah, um I was at a meeting. I actually visited DR, visited Santo Domingo for the first time in 15 years. I had been to DR previously, but mostly to the north part and the eastern part of the country with some of the beaches. And I went in May this year. It was a delegation of the Dominican attorneys
Mhm.
from the U.S. and we visited DR to meet with government officials, university officials, and business leaders. It was part of a trip of sharing resources and ideas, and I got to I had the privilege of attending a meeting with the Ministry of Energy and Mines, and they said that energy generation actually isn't a big problem in DR, um, but the grid is so outdated, and energy transmission is the biggest problem right now for the country. And frankly, as somebody who was born there and spent the first 7 years of my life, um, sadly, things have improved, but not much has changed. There's still rolling brownouts, still
Yep.
rolling blackouts, um, and it's one of those things that it's a chicken or the egg thing. And unfortunately, what I'm hopeful is that the government, as the Dominican government has been improving and GDP has been improving and more resources are flowing to the country, that investors are willing to, do their part in putting on big infrastructure projects, and including, the communities that they're nearby.
Mhm.
Um, have you Do you go to Barbados, with regularity?
Good question. I used to go from 83 to 95. My parents, like any good immigrant parents, they send me back to learn the culture. So I went back there from like age 3 to 12. I didn't took a break. I didn't go back to 24. At 24, I've gone back through the last 5 years, and
Nice.
obviously my childhood time there is very different than adulthood. I think the lens I look at the island is very different. Like I told my kids when they love the island, kids love going to it. Yeah. For the first time when I went back, I want to say 4 years ago, I rented a car. I drove. I saw the island as an adult, and I think for me it was like, oh, these are to your point. This infrastructure.
Hmm.
Um, there's infrastructure conversations to be had, and what it to me also meant was like there's a workforce conversation. If you build out infrastructure, you make any community stronger. There's a job component, and there's an entrepreneurship component. So for me, I was like, oh, I'd love to think about that a couple years on the line. Maybe when there's a five in front of my age and maybe six, I'd love to kind of move down there and really spend more time on the island. My parents from there, my family's from Barbados. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. I'm everything Brooklyn. My heart is in Bridgetown though. Like it's where my identity of who I am comes from Barbados and how my parents raised me. So I'm always thinking about how to get back on same level.
Yeah, no, you and me both are aligned there. That trip for me going back allowed me to see the island in a way that I think I hadn't seen it as an adult. And what it did is I came back to the States at my role in my law firm, but also some of the boards that I sit on, and I'm trying to find ways to overlap as many of those spaces as possible and leverage kind of my relationships and the work that I do in one space for the betterment of the DR. And my goal isn't to be a savior. My goal is not to revolutionize anything. My goal is just to use at least my time that I have here and however many years I have left, to leave whatever positive imprint I can leave on for then other people to continue.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you in terms of, and for people that are listening, you wouldn't know this unless you looked it up, but Keith and I both sit on the advisory board of a $40 million economy fund that was started through the Champlain Hudson Power Express project, and we've now sat through a few rounds of RFPs where applicants submit grants for green workforce grants to either start green workforce programs or enhance existing programs. And for me, that I love that work, Keith. It's super rewarding, and I know whenever we sit at those meetings and we deliberate, I know that you're very into it and active, and so I know it's a passion for both of us. In terms of what you're seeing in the market,
Mhm.
the employer employee market and the future of technology, the future of green tech, climate tech. Um, what are some things that you would, if you were 18, 19 years old right now, how would you go about future proofing your career, future proofing everything you want to do in
Yeah.
for a
That's
long sustained, climate
that's a
tech or
great question. I know our kids are close in age, and in terms of that too. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say what I would tell my kids as well. I tell my kids, if you go to college and it's great if it's affordable and if it work out. However, if you can, and I'm saying I have some bias on this, but I also have learned this in the industry. If you don't go get certifications to be an installer, or energy auditor, or work in the state, you can go make 60 cents again. You don't be 23 years old, right? And go work for a utility or work for a mom and pop. What I call a small business. Um, I think that's the first thing, and I think more than ever, there's more career pathways to having a good job, a good paying job, and have a future. So now I'm board chair for Building Performance Institute, and national well-known organization, certifications. Some certifications that BPI provides, are very important to this case. So I would tell folks look at the best way to put yourself in a position to success, right? And I think being certified on several levels is important. And understand also what a given utility or a given business is looking for in terms of training, right? Everyone can have a bachelor's degree. I love that everyone's highly intelligent. I'm never going to knock that. But there are certain skills you need hardware, software, right? So I'd look at weatherization, building decarbonization, like putting a window, roof gutter repair, solar panels, EV charging and maintenance, right? Not just actually installing station, but who's maintaining the EV charge station? Like they don't just sit there and repair themselves. Then there's a technician that's making 75,000 a year that can check to make sure those stations at the random gas station at 8 hour drive is working. Um, and then finally, think about it from across the board. Like I mentioned, like law, finance, other items. Like there are a lot of things that are transferable, right? Like the companies need a lawyer, whether they're climate tech or they're like, a pharmaceutical company. They need a lawyer. Someone that's good at governance, right? If you're running, so look at your skills, like, and if you're into, I'm 18, 19, I want to get into law. Okay, well, that's an option. I want to work with my hands, right? Great. Let's look at some skills. I don't want to work with my hands. I'm a software person. Well, great. There needs to be a system that tells the EV charging station when the car is full to stop giving energy. That could be a job. So I think we have to do a better job to educate 18, 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds to say, here are the options. So I always tell my kids, I love you. I hope you guys do well in life. With me, of course, without me as well, not in the near future. Let them know, like, you just don't get certifications and you still have your creative career and you still can find a pathway to success. So very
Yeah.
important.
Are you I spend way too much of my time. So again, I'm happy to speak about my family. One thing as a young person that they don't tell you what's going to come as an adult is the amount of laundry and dishes that have to be done. Keith, they never stop, man. They never stop. And my wife, she runs a small business and she's, we're both we split the household duties, but we each have our own spaces. And my realm is laundry and dishes. So I do get a lot of time to listen to podcasts and audiobooks. I put the headphones on and I'm usually moving around, unloading, loading dishes. What are you, again, what are you listening to right now? What are you reading right now
Good
that,
question.
whether it's environmental or climate driven or not, what's occupying your free time?
Let me give you my business answer to what I'm reading. I'll give you my personal answer. So the one thing I'm rereading is Three Ring Circus. It's a
Okay.
story about the LA Lakers three.
Okay.
And I think it was important. Donnell actually sent me the book years ago, and I'm rereading it. And it talks about, what it is from the outside, seeing the Lakers repeat, and how hard it is to win championship. And you don't have to be a Lakers fan to read it, and I'm not a Lakers fan. But understanding like how to build a system to win,
Mm,
right? And understand what it is, not just to on the court, to manage relationships off the court, right? And to come on. So I think from a business perspective, I like to read that and see, okay, well, it must have been hard to have like Shaq and Kobe and Rick Fox and Robert Ory all on one team in the game. And then what happens outside the game. So I think that's one. I think I'm always like reading the Bible to make sure I'm in a good place. That's a business act. So like I need to be grounded, so I'm working on that. Those two keep me running. In terms of like kind of personal stuff, I'm a big comic book person. So I sometimes I make decisions based on reading comic books. My wife may not agree with that, but I would say right now I'm reading George Jorge Jimenez's Batman run. It just started.
okay.
Um, I'm rereading Tom Taylor's Nightwing run. It's probably
Okay.
who won the Eisner Award for this. And then I'm what else am I reading? Gail Simone is writing Uncanny X-Men. I tend
Okay.
to read things that are like very high level from like very well known artists. And my favorite character is Batman. So anything not related, I'm into. Well, That's
Uh,
where I am now. I try to. I part of my reading is to like get better at things, but also part of it is to like give me a break, right, and kind of let my mind kind of like, oh, let me do something that's like not really important and get into it. So I give my mind a break. Just like you, probably laundry time or probably between or my long walks. I tend to walk 3 days a week. So I tend to do some walking and do public reading when I'm walking.
yeah, the one thing that work from home has done for me is allowed me to, my 15-minute breaks are usually filled with me, making some coffee, changing, doing some cleaning around the house, but listening to a podcast or an audiobook. So I'm gonna ask you two more questions.
Yeah,
I'm
yep.
gonna let you go. And this one is you've mentioned that sci-fi, at least your LinkedIn profile, and you've spoken about it. Sci-fi,
Anime.
I'm listen, man. I don't know what happened around and I've always been into sci-fi. As a kid, I was always into science and the idea of a either post-apocalyptic Earth or futuristic stuff. Judge Dredd. That like anything in the future. Like I love that stuff. And the pandemic kinda turned up the volume on that, and I've really leaned into it. I watched almost so I went through every space TV show or movie that I could find, and then I found the old William Shatner Star Treks, and I
Oh,
went
oh, Star Trek. Yeah, I'm a
and
Trekkie, so yeah.
I went through 4 and I'm a big Star Wars dude, but I'm like, "Let me see what these Trekkies are all about," and I got through, like, 3 seasons, I was like, "Alright, I see you, Star Trek," but right now, like, what kinda sci-fi are you into? Or, what's your
Um,
sci-fi genre?
yeah, I mean, I think I'm a Trekkie more than a Star Wars person, just based on how it's very easy why I became a Trekkie. And it's based on we grew up in New York, so it's very simple. It's called Channel 13 and Channel 11. When we were kids, we had Vince LeVar Burton was on Reading Rainbow.
Yep.
Right? And then I would switch over to Channel 11 and see him as Geordie LaForge on Star Trek.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
to me, I'm like, this is the guy that's taught me how to read, and now he's in outer space. Now,
yeah.
honestly, I knew the shows were not real, but like that, it took. I became a Trekkie first, right? So I've always been a Trekkie, and I love Star Trek, the first, Next Generation. I think so. I'm a Trekkie. Love Star Wars too. So I would say in terms of like my all-time favorite stuff, like I think for movies, it's Terminator 2. Like
Ah,
Terminator 2 is like one of the best ever. I watched that 4 times. I watched that twice. I think I watched that 3 times in America in the theater, and I watched it in the drive-in in Barbados. Like I was amazed by it. Fifth Element with Bruce
yeah,
Willis,
man.
Chris Tucker. I know that
Yeah, of
movie
course.
word for word. And then the Star Wars side, my Star Wars love came from Barbados. My cousins were big Star Wars folks, so they remember seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater. I was 3 years old when that came out. So to me, my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith. I still think it's the best movie in terms of the Star Wars storyline. I'm a big Star. Like I read all the books. I know canon. I'm into that. So that's where I am. And I'll have to add a Star Trek movie, Star Trek First Contact. Those are my
Okay,
top 4. Like
okay.
I probably have one because I know I'm at an age where like I have one that's like, oh, when I was 9, and now 15, like it's my all time. I'm like, I still would watch these 4. But yeah, I'm a sci-fi person. I'm a big anime guy. I love anime. I read anime. I've been doing that since, and that goes back to my cousins in Barbados. Like they got me hooked on anime, read the books, and when I watch a bunch of 80s anime movies, and I still watch it now. It just gives me a place to like rest my brain.
Now,
Uh,
you and I are gonna have to geek out another time on the sci-fi because I could get into the Star Wars stuff, man. I've watched at least the 9 movies at least 4 times each, and I even got into some of the animated.
Well, the animated is amazing. I think that's the part that threw me off of Star Wars.
Yeah,
I watched the movies. The Clone War. So
The Clone Wars cart man,
uh,
that
yeah,
that was so well done.
yeah. I always tell people the best stories to tell in Star Wars is um really between episodes 3 and 4.
Mhm.
Right when Anakin became Darth Vader year 1, and right little between 2 and 3 where Clone Wars was, and then really between where they have Mandalorian now, between 7 and 8, where you got like Luke at full power set and man. So I always tell people those are the best stories to tell. It's hard to tell them unless you have like a lot of time to tell it, like Clone Wars and Mandalorian. So yeah, I really doubled just like you. I doubled down in the pandemic on Star Wars. Right, I really geeked out. Star Trek too. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with my kids watching 80s stuff. I had to watch all the 80s
Nice,
classics, like Family Matters and Battlestar Galactica and all that, just to get
nice.
geek out. So
Well, I've we've been going on for 45 minutes, Keith. I'm gonna ask you one last question. Um, you know, when you imagine Brooklyn, when you imagine really maybe the world, Barbados, 20 years from now, you know, what gives you hope? What hope do you see for this greening movement, clean tech movement? Where are we headed? Where do we need to push harder? Like, what do you see this? When we're old heads in our 60s and 70s, what are you hopeful for?
well, I think I'm always hopeful because there's a generation that's like we're doing the work and just wanna growing up behind us, right? And they're gonna be doing the work. I would say I'm fortunate that I get to talk to folks at ASKs in their 20s and 30s that I know what they're doing and what they're excited about doing. And then folks that are our age are still doing the work. And like to your point, 20 years from now, we'll still be doing something in this space moving forward. I think that's important. And that's like tier and any one of those to really. Um, I also think that no matter the political climate, it really doesn't matter. I know that sounds weird to say, but this is about like supply chain and moving things forward, right? So a lot of the work being done is literally at a very granular level. No one's going to be against nanites that can tell if the ship's exterior is corroding, which will then affect how much time supplies get from DR to Jamaica or from one part of the country to another. Those are things that are important, right? And so when you're solving those solutions, when you're thinking about to solve a solution, there's a lot of excitement. So when I hear like companies talk about what they're building or what they're doing, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like you guys are like thinking way ahead. And also it builds the economy. Like someone's gonna create a company and do well. Someone's gonna get a job and do well. Someone's gonna be able to feed their family. Someone's gonna be able to make something that's important that can last a long time. So that's what keeps me excited and motivated. Hopefully next 20 days and 20 years.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Great response. And Keith, I really appreciate you, man. I know we've been trying to get together for a few months, and I had to, like I mentioned, I had to put the podcast on hold for a little bit just to kind of reorient myself. But I'm doubling down because I think these conversations are important, especially with people like us, putting our voices out there and giving our stories. So I appreciate you coming on this day, this cold day in New York. But I'm really, really excited for the work you're doing and the next chapter of your career trajectory. Everyone, if you want to find Keith, my guess would be go to LinkedIn, Keith. Right?
Yeah, best way to find me is LinkedIn. I am responsive. And would love to talk about next steps and what we're doing and how to work together. A lot of work to do and a lot of opportunity. So I'm really excited about it.
Keith, you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Green Collar Careers Podcast. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their time and insights with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps more people discover the podcast. You can also support the show by leaving a review or sharing this episode with someone who might find it helpful. And if there's a topic or guest you'd love to hear from, please let me know. DM me, reach out, shoot me an email. Thanks again for being part of this community, and I'll see you again next time.